Welcome back, everybody. This is Drake. This is going to be a shorter video this time around. Today we're looking at the Sears Roebuck Model 200, which is for all intents and purposes the Winchester Model 1200. This version is in 20 gauge, has a plain barrel, brass bead sight, and a poly choke, which is adjustable from cylinder to full. They came in a 3-inch chambering for both the 12 and the 20 gauge, and they were offered, I believe, in a 16 gauge at some point. However, the 12 and the 20 are going to be most prevalent. These shotguns were produced in the late 60s through the 70s. They were eventually replaced by the Winchester Model 1300, although to my knowledge Sears and Roebuck did not carry a 1300 based model due to the fact that they changed around a lot of their marketing and eventually ceased firearm sales going into the 80s and 90s. So what we're doing today is not really a review of this gun, although it is a fantastic gun. We're going to cover essentially field strip and detailed disassembly. And reassembly will be the exact reverse. If you do need help on that, comment. If I get enough comments, I will show you the reassembly. Now, to start, obviously you would wish to safety check your firearm. Just like a Mossberg 500 series, the bolt release is here next to the trigger guard on the left hand side. Depress it, your bolt will slightly pop open, rack to the side, chamber check obviously. But like a Model 870, the lifter is constantly in a down position and is spring loaded. Reach down in, touch the magazine tube, make sure there is not a cartridge inside. Rack a couple more times. Our safety is a push button safety located right here, just like an 870 style. And it's pretty simple to grasp how this shotgun works. Now, like a standard shotgun takedown, we're going to start with removing the barrel. There is a screw cap right here. Due to the light, you can't really see, but it is slotted, so if it's too tight, you can get a quarter or the rim of a cartridge case. This is a heavy piece of steel. Don't lose it. All accessories, if you want to mount a sling on this, it is a standard Winchester 1200 accessories for a 20 gauge or 12 gauge, what have you. So we removed the barrel. You'll notice that it looks a little bit different, kind of like a barrel extension. That's because it sort of is, and that's because this firearm works off of a rotating bolt system. You can see it there. We'll see it in better detail when we get the firearm fully disassembled. Now, I have the bolt back. I'm going to push it forward slightly. I find this isn't necessary, but it helps. You'll see a push pin in the rear of the receiver. You're going to take a pokey tool, a punch. I have a tool here that comes with the Mosin Nagant cleaning kit that was just laying around spare. I prefer to use pencils or pens sometimes. They're softer on the metal. Just give it a push, which either side you would like. It is not tapered, so you can give it a push from either side. It does not have to go left to right or vice versa. It'll pop right out there. You'll see it has 2 cuts in it. They are around the circumference of the pin. Pull, it'll automatically want to start falling out. Pull your bolt forward, pivot this down and out of the action. All of your trigger components and your lifter assembly is contained in this piece. They are held in by pins and 1 or 2 screws. Fairly simple to take apart, blow out with some air, get in there and lightly lubricate. Very, very easy to deal with. Now you'll want to try and pull the bolt and carrier assembly out the front of the right. No, we can't, can we? No, it doesn't. Don't be alarmed, your gun is not broken, and do not force this step. Believe me, you do not want to do what you think you want to and just rack this forward as hard as you can. You will shear a very important screw. Now, this screw, I do not know if we can take a look at it here, perhaps with some lighting from our handy dandy cell phone. But I will get in here and we can see, oh, right there it is, right there. And the very poor lighting I'm producing with this video right now. There, that's better. So we see that. So you're going to need to remove that. And now the trick is going to be showing you removal of this screw without obstructing the view, but that's going to be near impossible. So you're going to want to get a very fine screwdriver, which I have obviously not. So we are going to, through the magic of video editing, skip to where I have actually discovered one. And voila, we have found one. So you're going to want to take this and get in there. Ugh. So we have found one. You're going to want to take this, get right in there on your screw, and of course loosen it up. And this screw will come all the way out, and it is a very small part. You may be thinking to yourself, well, this is a very critical component to be so small. Yes, and later designs like the 1300 would correct this issue. Now, we've got our little screw out. Now what do we do? Well, what we do next is we simply pull the whole bolt and carrier assembly out through the front of the gun, which in that situation we see a couple things have happened. So here's our whole bolt and carrier assembly. I'm going to set it to the side assembled, although it wants to try and fall apart, and something has come out the bottom. What is this? This is our ejector. This is kind of a leaf spring dealio that sits inside, which is retained by a tab in the rear of the receiver and by the barrel extension at the front of the receiver. Obviously a very large part, not easy to lose, but there it is nonetheless. Now that can jimmy loose on you sometimes, even when you don't pull the bolt and carrier out, but for all intents and purposes it is pertinent information. Now you are fully field stripped. You'll notice it's very light. That's because this is an aluminum receiver, just like a Mossberg 500, with a very thin steel magazine tube, and the stock is not very chunky or heavy. It's in 20 gauge, it's a beautiful light to carry gun for any purpose you need a shotgun, especially a good ladies gun or a young person gun. Now I have removed the bolt and it has exploded on me. Well, that is for several reasons, which we'll go over. Now, this is very simple. Forward assembly, dual action bars, easy to understand. There is a forward screw cap here. If you wish to remove the forward wood, you can unscrew that with a bar tool of some form. You do not need a specific wrench. Just get something that's long, flat, and fits in those slots. Give it an unscrew, pull it apart. Now, what has happened? Well, this is our plate, and this is what that screw is retaining into the bolt body itself. Now, you'll notice that it kind of exploded here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to reassemble this slightly. And I'm going to put this back on, and we're going to see that, okay, here's our bolt and bolt carrier. I kind of called it the whole bolt carrier assembly. It's kind of hard to tell really what it is. They have specific names in the manual. However, I'm just sort of ad-libbing it here, so that's what we're going to go with. Now, you'll notice that the bolt is rotating, obviously, and is spring-loaded, and the tail will come out the rear here, shrouding the firing pin. Pretty good feature, so you can't get slam fires, you can't get out of battery detonations. The firing pin is also spring-loaded. So when I completely shroud it, oh, well, the hammer will come up and it'll strike, and it still has enough clearance, even with that bolt tail, to push that firing pin forward and protrude. Now, the disassembly of this completely is not entirely necessary. However, we will go over it just because, in case you need to replace parts or you really do need to get some grime out of there. Take the bottom plate off and set it aside. Control your firing pin. It's going to want to come flying out at you. You'll pull it. You'll notice it looks oddly similar to an AR-15. The return spring, very light, little spring. You want to be careful of that. You don't want to kink it up or do anything bad to it, because that is necessary for the bolt to work, because you'll notice that that also is your bolt return spring. Now, what do we do? Well, can't quite figure that out. The bolt won't come out, right? This is where I recommend that you stop, clean what you need to clean, and set it aside. This is a pain in the butt. However, for the interest of this channel and those who need to know, we will disassemble this. Now, there is a cam pin in it, obviously. You can see it right there. And there is a small hole on the top of the bolt carrier. Now I wonder if those two are connected. Well, if you're wondering that too, both of our assumptions are correct. This little bolt carrier here, or excuse me, this little hole here in the bolt carrier indexes to that cam pin. Now what you're going to do is you're going to move it back and forth and notice that you see lines. Well, that's your cam pin. Put it in the approximate center of that cam pin. You're going to want to take a punch or some other small pokey tool, again, like maybe this screwdriver, but I recommend something flatter, maybe softer, maybe even something like a piece of plastic. And you're going to get in there and you're going to give it a push. Now you notice it's starting to come out right there. Alright, so we're going to get in there again. And I'm just going to kind of give this a nice firm push, and oh, what's just happened? That's exactly why I said you should probably not do this unless absolutely necessary, because this is a complete pain in the butt. This is where your spring comes into effect. Yes, here's your little cam pin. Kind of want to remember which way it was oriented. Remember that the firing pin hole is slightly offset, so when you reassemble this guy, you're going to want to put him towards the bottom. Now, when I pull this firing pin, or excuse me, not this firing pin, but this punch out, I've got a spring that's compressed right on in there. That thing's going to want to come flying out, and it's going to be a pain in the butt to get back together. Because I love you guys, I'm going to do it. So I'm going to put that in my hand, pull it out, and there. Heard that ping? Here comes a washer. There comes our extractor out the front of the gun, or excuse me, the front of the bolt. I'm going to pull the whole bolt out the front. I dump this out, and there's our heavy spring. Now that is actually your bolt return spring, and from what I can tell, sort of a shock absorber to allow the bolt to travel backwards against the cam, or excuse me, against the carrier slightly, and also doubles as your extractor spring. Now you can inspect your extractor. Your bolt is apart. There's no more disassembly left to this bolt. You can see it's just one piece of milled steel, and that's all of your components. So I will put all the bolt components right over here. Here's your receiver, there's your ejector, trigger housing, front cap, trigger housing pin, your barrel, and of course your action bars and your forearm. So, I hope that was helpful, guys. If you need any tips on reassembly, it is a little bit tricky. Essentially what I like to do is I like to take the back of this punch or something flat, even like the back of this screwdriver, and you're going to have to obviously push that whole bit back in and try and reinsert the cam pin at the same time. Keeping a slave pin will help produce that. If you can hear the dog whining on the camera, well, that's because she likes to cry about everything and probably just wants to go outside and bark at Lord knows what. So I'm going to go take care of her. We're going to get the gun reassembled, and I hope you all have a great time. Keep safe, and of course keep your powder dry, and God bless. This is Drake signing off.